Have you ever looked at a painting and felt like it was looking back at you? Comment yes if you felt that with any artwork before. I want to see how many of you get it. Yeah, we're talking about Portrait of Dr. Gachet. But here's the thing. It's not just a portrait. It's a silent scream on canvas. Have you ever felt so alone that even the world's colors look tired? That's exactly what Van Gogh saw in Dr. Gachet. Dr. Gachet wasn't just some random doctor. He was the man who sat with Van Gogh during the last 70 days of his life. A doctor who, ironically, was just as depressed as his patient. Imagine this: Van Gogh sitting in front of Dr. Gachet, looking into those sad, weary eyes and realizing, this man gets it. He feels what I feel. Because for Van Gogh, painting wasn't about what you see, it was about what you feel. Portrait of Dr. Gachet wasn't just a face on a canvas. It was Vincent's way of telling the world, I see your pain, I see your loneliness, because it's mine too. And if you look closely, you can feel it. The drooping hand on the cheek, the tired eyes, the small foxglove plant on the table. Yeah, that's a plant used to treat heart problems, a subtle nod to Gachet's fragile health. Everything in this painting whispers loneliness. Everything in this painting screams, I understand. And you know what's crazy? Van Gogh painted this in just one sitting. One sitting. Because sometimes the deepest pains don't need time to explain themselves. They just pour out. But here's the wild part. After Van Gogh died, Portrait of Dr. Gachet would vanish, reappear, get tangled up in Nazi art looting, and eventually become one of the world's most expensive paintings ever sold. But that's a story for part 2. And trust me, you don't want to miss how it vanished. If you've ever felt alone and found comfort in art, hit like and follow. Because in part 2, we're diving into how this painting became the most expensive cry for help in art history. Imagine buying a painting for $82.5 million and then saying you're going to cremate yourself with it when you die. You see, back in 1990, this painting didn't just break a record, it shattered it. At Christie's, New York, Portrait of Dr. Gachet was sold for $82.5 million, which would be around $161 million today. At that moment, it became one of the most expensive paintings ever sold in human history. But the real story? It's even wilder. The man who dropped this insane amount on Van Gogh? Roi Saito, a Japanese paper magnate, one of the wealthiest men in Japan during the crazy days of the Japanese asset bubble. At that time, Japanese billionaires were buying up Van Gogh, Monet, Picasso like kids grabbing candy. But Saito didn't just buy it for flex, or maybe he did, but with a twist. Because shortly after the auction, he made an announcement that shocked the world. When I die, I want this painting cremated with me. Imagine the art world's collective gasp. The idea that Van Gogh's masterpiece, one of his most emotionally powerful, historically significant works, would simply vanish in smoke with a billionaire who didn't want to leave it behind. Let that sink in. A painting that once captured Van Gogh's silent cry for help. A painting that survived wars, Nazi looting, and the chaos of art markets. Now, it was at the mercy of one man's whim. Why would he do that? Was it greed, eccentricity? Or did he truly love the painting so much he couldn't bear the thought of it outliving him? Some say it was a reflection of Japan's 1980s-90s hyper-wealth culture, where art became a status symbol so powerful it was almost spiritual. And here's a "you'll sound smart at parties" fact. Japan's asset bubble was so insane that at its peak, the land value of the Imperial Palace in Tokyo was worth more than all of California. That's the world Saito lived in, a world where dropping $82.5 million on a Van Gogh was like buying a sports car to some of these tycoons. But unlike others, Saito's relationship with Portrait of Dr. Gachet was personal. Here's the plot twist. Saito died in 1996, but the painting? It didn't get cremated. Instead, the masterpiece disappeared from public view. Van Gogh's Portrait of Dr. Gachet has not been publicly seen for decades. Where is it now? Rumors say it's in a Swiss vault. Others claim it quietly changed hands to another private collector. Some even whisper it's being used as collateral for loans in the shadowy corners of the art world. This painting, born out of Van Gogh's loneliness, became a trophy in the art market's wildest days, and then it vanished. A ghost, just like Van Gogh himself, floating through history. This isn't just about money. It's about how art, even something as raw and personal as Portrait of Dr. Gachet, becomes entangled in human ego, power, and wealth. Van Gogh died broke, unable to sell his paintings, tormented by isolation. Decades later, the same painting that once screamed, "I am alone," was worth millions, bought by billionaires, hidden in vaults, whispered about in auction houses. Here's what most people don't realize. When you hear about record-breaking art sales, it's not just rich people flexing. It's a reflection of global power shifts, financial speculation, and how art becomes currency in ways few truly understand. Art isn't just pretty pictures. It's a mirror of society's desires, fears, and hidden power structures. Think about it. The same world that let Van Gogh die in poverty is the world that now spends $82.5 million on his painting without blinking. The same world that says art is priceless often treats it like a price tag. Art collectors can keep paintings away from the public for decades, while the rest of us only see them in textbooks or Google images. So the next time you see Portrait of Dr. Gachet, or rather, when you realize you can't see it, remember, it's not just a painting. It's a story of loneliness, money, and power. It's a symbol of how art can outlive its creator, get caught in the storms of history, and still haunt us even when it's locked away. And here's something even crazier. Did you know the Nazis once looted another version of Dr. Gachet's portrait? And that Van Gogh might have painted two versions of this masterpiece? In Part 3, we're diving into Nazi art theft, hidden copies, and why Portrait of Dr. Gachet is at the center of one of art's greatest mysteries. You don't want to miss this. If you love learning the real stories behind art, hit like and follow so you don't miss the next part. And let me know in the comments. If you had $161 million, would you buy a Van Gogh, or would you rather keep it where the world can see it? Art isn't dead. It's just hiding. Imagine the Nazis breaking into a home and stealing a Van Gogh painting. Now imagine they didn't even realize they might have stolen the wrong version. Let's rewind. We all know Van Gogh's Portrait of Dr. Gachet is one of the most emotional paintings he ever made. But what most people don't know? Van Gogh didn't paint just one Dr. Gachet. He painted two versions. Both with Dr. Gachet, his sad, tired eyes, and that melancholic hand on his face. But here's the twist. Both ended up on wildly different paths through history. One would become the $82.5 million painting we talked about last time. The other? It got swept into one of the darkest heists in history. During World War II, the Nazis looted art across Europe. They weren't just stealing for fun. They had a plan to build Hitler's super museum, filled with masterpieces they robbed from families, collectors, and galleries. Among those stolen treasures, the second portrait of Dr. Gachet. But here's the crazy part. The Nazis took it from a Jewish collector in Paris. They packed it up with hundreds of other masterpieces, and it vanished. Imagine this.
Van Gogh, a man who died alone and broke, never knowing the world would care about his art. Decades later, his painting becomes a pawn in the Nazis' twisted ambitions. And now, it's still missing. Some say it was recovered and returned to its rightful owners after the war. Others believe it was quietly sold, disappearing into private hands. There are even rumors it could be hanging on a wall somewhere in Europe, hidden by a family afraid to reveal it. Here's something fascinating. In Van Gogh's last months, he felt a rare connection with Dr. Gachet, who treated him during his mental health struggles. Van Gogh once said about Dr. Gachet, "He is a strange but a sympathetic man." And in his typical, intense, restless way, Van Gogh decided to paint Dr. Gachet not once, but twice. Because for Van Gogh, painting wasn't just art. It was a lifeline. Imagine having such a strong artist crush on your therapist that you paint them twice, and then those paintings get caught up in war crimes, billion-dollar auctions, and global mysteries. Van Gogh would have lost his ear again if he knew. This isn't just about a missing painting. It's about history itself. Because every time a painting like Portrait of Dr. Gachet goes missing, we lose a piece of our collective memory. Art holds the stories of human pain, hope, and survival. When the Nazis stole art, they weren't just taking objects. They were trying to erase identities, cultures, and the souls of people they oppressed. So when you know that two Dr. Gachets existed and that one was looted by Nazis, you're not just learning art trivia. You're understanding how art connects to war, to human stories, to resilience. And how even today, somewhere out there, a version of Dr. Gachet may be hanging in a room, carrying all the weight of Van Gogh's struggle and a stolen past.